ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming along this morning. Now, often when an opposition party leader says that he wishes the Prime Minister well in an endeavour, the electorate can be forgiven for suspecting that he might not mean this 100%. Because the key role of an opposition leader is to obviously capitalise on the failures of the incumbent Prime Minister. But in the case of Theresa May and Brexit, there should be no doubt whatsoever that UKIP sincerely wishes her all the best as she embarks on her negotiations for our EU departure. Because the achievement of Brexit is the highest goal of our party. It was our founding purpose back in 1993 and has been our primary motivation ever since. In those early days, back in the 90s, the very idea of the United Kingdom having a future as an independent, self-governing nation outside the EU was mocked and derided. The Maastricht Treaty, which set up the political furniture for the single currency, was held to be just another step along the inevitable and irreversible path to ever closer union. The British left had largely given up resistance. Unable to win domestic elections, it sought to achieve socialism via the European Union politics. The test for Euroscepticism in the Tory party was whether a politician wanted to join the Euro or not, rather than actually espousing leaving the European Union altogether. Even just a year or two before this EU referendum, the entire Better Off outgroup within the Commons and Lords only numbered around 24 members. Conservative politicians, now regarded as unshakable long-term voices for Brexit, such as Liam Fox and Bill Cash, in fact only begun to make publicly the case for immediate withdrawal in the run-up to the referendum. UKIP was the party that kept the flame burning in the lean years, and now we know UKIP's growing electoral success after the 2010 election was a key factor in persuading David Cameron that an in-out referendum was inevitable. As former Lib Dem coalition minister David Laws recalls in his memoirs, when he asked why David Cameron had pledged to give a referendum, Mr Cameron retorted, it was because of the Eurosceptic nature of his own backbenchers, but secondly, it was because UKIP was breathing down his neck. And under my leadership, that is what UKIP will continue to do. While we will be willing Mrs May to succeed in agreeing to a full Brexit on our terms, we want her to keep faith with the will of the British people, as expressed in the referendum result last June. We will also be letting her know that the political price that she will pay for backsliding or watering down the ambitions will be very high indeed. I have described this role as akin to being the guard dog of Brexit. After more than 2 decades of resisting us, the Conservative Party has now declared itself a Brexit party too. And as the party of government, it has a unique privilege of implementing the will of the people. To help concentrate its mind on the task ahead, and to help others ensure the will of the people is upheld, I am today publishing 6 key tests for Brexit from UKIP's point of view. These tests are not intended to be a comprehensive list of every single significant aspect of our departure, but they do highlight what I consider to be the main priorities. And to those of you representing media outlets that might wish to marginalise UKIP, let me remind you of something. I speak today as the leader of the political party that won the European parliamentary elections of 2014, the most recent nationwide election at which our relationship with the EU was the dominant issue, and the leader of the political party that has driven the Brexit agenda for over 20 years. Moreover, I stand here as the leader of the political party that came third in popular vote terms at the last general election. The Brexit tests I set out today hold true to the agenda we have fought on and attracted a large measure of support for in recent years. On any estimation, our voice is an important one, and our views need to be acknowledged as commanding the backing of millions of people who voted to leave the European Union. So here are the Brexit tests that UKIP is setting Mrs May as she enters her preferred Article 50 route to Brexit. Number 1, the legal test. Parliament must resume its supremacy of lawmaking with no impediments, qualifications, restrictions on its future actions agreed in any leaving deal. Britain must wholly remove itself from the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice. No undertaking shall be given in the leaving agreement that contains the UK being an ongoing member in the European Court of Human Rights. Number 2, the migration test. Britain must resume full control of its immigration and asylum policies and border controls. There must be no impediments, qualifications or restrictions agreed in any leaving deal. We must not be bound by any freedom of movement obligation. The departure terms must facilitate the government finally making good on its broken promise to cut net annual migration to the tens of thousands. The maritime test. Number 3. Joining the European Economic Community involved the betrayal of our coastal communities at the behest of a previous Tory Prime Minister. Leaving, they must not be betrayed again. Leaving the EU must involve restoring the UK full maritime sovereignty. The UK must resume complete control of its maritime exclusive economic zone, stretching 200 miles off the coast, or the halfway point between the UK and neighbouring countries. We must ensure that no constraint other than its own fiscal capacity or the needs of stock preservation or replenishment, as decided upon by the UK Parliament, applies to our fleet. This will give our fishing industry a long overdue chance to recover. Test 4, the trade test. The UK must retake its seat on the World Trade Organisation and resume its sovereign right to sign trade agreements with other countries. The UK must have full legal rights to set its own tariff and non-tariff barriers, consistent with WTO rules. This means leaving the EU single market and leaving the customs union. Continued tariff-free trade with no strings attached may be offered to the European Union, but if the EU declines the offer, then WTO terms are the acceptable fallback position. Post-departure, both sides will have the ability to further liberalise trade on the basis of mutual gain. Test 5, the money test. There must be no final settlement payments to the European Union and no ongoing payments to the EU budget after we have left. There must also be a commitment to reclaim our share of financial assets from entities such as the European Investment Bank, in which it is estimated that some £9 billion of UK money is vested. Finally, the 6th test, the time test. Given that David Cameron held the referendum so early in the government's term of office, it is clearly reasonable that we can expect the Brexit process to be completed well before the next general election. To go into 2020 with loose ends left untied or an open-ended transition still in progress would risk plunging the country into a new era of uncertainty and, indeed, emboldening those who wish to overturn the referendum result. That is unacceptable. So Brexit must be done and dusted before the end of 2019. These tests represent what the people voted for on June the 23rd, 2016. And although we wish Mrs May well in her negotiations, she must know and understand that UKIP will be there as the guard dogs of Brexit to ensure that the people are not betrayed, to ensure that there is no bartering, to ensure that there is no backsliding. And we will be there to ensure that Brexit really does mean exit. Thank you very much.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.